Puddle Lane, the magic dust. The magician's house. The magic dust. Chestnut Mouse was out in Puddle Lane looking for something to eat when it suddenly began to rain. There was no warning. The rain poured down, streaming off the roofs of the houses in a dozen little waterfalls. Chestnut saw a broken flower pot by Mr. Puffle's front door. He ran over to it and crept inside to wait until the rain was over. It was raining in Puddle Lane. Chestnut crept into a flower pot. He heard the gates of the magician's garden bang too. He looked out and saw the Gruffle coming down the lane. The Gruffle was a monster. He was always gruff and grumpy, but he hated rain. He was looking very angry as he stamped down the lane, breathing out little puffs of fire and smoke. But Chestnut wasn't frightened because he knew the Gruffle was afraid of mice. Chestnut looked out of the flower pot. He saw the Gruffle in Puddle Lane. The rain stopped and the sun came out. Chestnut was just going to run out into the lane when he saw Mr. Puffle. He hid at the back of the flower pot. Suddenly there was a great crash. There was a roar from the Gruffle and the sound of running feet. Chestnut peeped out of the flower pot. Mr. Puffle was staggering to his front door, and the Gruffle was standing in the lane, roaring, with potatoes lying all around him. As Chestnut watched, a toy mouse landed in the lane beside the Gruffle. The Gruffle roared again and vanished. Chestnut saw the Gruffle standing in the lane. The Gruffle roared. Chestnut looked up. Harry was looking out of an upstairs window. As Chestnut watched, he disappeared inside. A few moments later, Harry came out into the lane with Geeta. They picked up the toy mouse. Then they picked up the potatoes, put them in a sack, and left them inside Mr. Puffle's front door. They went inside their own house again. Chestnut didn't wait any longer. He ran off up Puddle Lane as fast as he could run. He was very excited. Harry and Geeta went inside. Chestnut ran off up Puddle Lane as fast as he could run. The wide-awake mice were all at home when Chestnut came rushing down the mouse hole. "I've seen a mouse," he cried, falling over himself with excitement. "I've seen a toy mouse. It was dressed just the way you are. It must be a wide-awake mouse." "Where was it?" asked Aunt Jane. "In one of the houses in Puddle Lane. That boy Harry dropped it in the lane, but he took it back into the house." "I've seen a mouse," cried Chestnut. "I've seen a toy mouse. It must be a wide-awake mouse." "It must be father or mother," cried Miranda. "Someone came into the toy shop and bought them before we came alive. We must go and find them." "Wait a bit," said Grandfather Mouse. "We've got to think carefully. We only came alive because the magician spilt some magic dust over us. We must try and get some magic dust so that they can come alive too." "I don't see how we can ever get magic dust," said Uncle Maximus. "We must ask the magician for some," said Grandmother Mouse. "We must get some magic dust," said Grandfather Mouse. "We must ask the magician for some," said Grandmother Mouse. "We'll have to wait till it's dark," said Chestnut. "It's not very safe running about the garden in the daytime. We'll go and see the magician tonight." "The mouse holes in the magician's house aren't as big as I should like them to be," said Grandfather Mouse. "I'll go and get the magic dust," said Chestnut. "I'll go with you," said Jeremy. "So will I," said Miranda. "I wish I could go with you," said Aunt Jane, "but it's no good. I can't use my foot yet." Aunt Jane had got a thorn in her back paw and it was very painful. She gave Chestnut a little sack for the magic dust. "I will go and get the magic dust," said Chestnut. "I will go with you," said Jeremy. "So will I," said Miranda. As soon as it was dark, the three little mice ran off through the magician's garden and through a hole under the door into the hall of the big house. This way, squeaked Chestnut. They ran up the stairs to the landing. Chestnut found the mouse hole leading up through the walls of the old house to the magician's room, and they all scrambled up through it as fast as they could. Chestnut found the mouse hole that led to the magician's room. They came out into the magician's room. There was no one there. The cauldron was bubbling on the fire, and the firelight shone on the big chair. I wonder where he is, whispered Jeremy. I don't know, said Chestnut. I thought he'd be here. We shall have to find the magic dust by ourselves, said Miranda. I'm sure the magician would give us some if he were here. The magician was not in his room. We must find the magic dust, said Miranda. The little mice scampered all over the room, looking for the silver box of magic dust. Chestnut and Jeremy explored the table, but the box wasn't there. Miranda climbed all over the big chair and then ran up onto the mantelpiece. She saw the little dragon sitting there, and for a moment she was frightened, but then she remembered that the little dragon had turned into stone. Something was shining on the other side of the dragon. Miranda climbed over his tail and saw the silver box. It's here, she cried, it's here. Miranda saw the little dragon. She climbed over the dragon's tail and saw the silver box. Chestnut and Jeremy ran up the wall and along the mantelpiece to join her. That's it, said Jeremy. That's the box the magician had in Mr. Wideawake's shop. How does it open? Asked Chestnut. There's a lid, said Jeremy. We'll have to push the box over and pull off the lid. They all stood up on their back feet and pushed. The box fell over. The lid fell off. Some magic dust spilled out. The mice stood up on their back feet and pushed. The box fell over. Put some magic dust in Aunt Jane's sack, said Miranda. They were so busy pushing the dust into the sack with their front paws that they didn't notice that some of it had floated up into the air and settled on the little dragon. The mice pushed the magic dust into the sack. Some of the dust fell on the little dragon. The sack's full, said Jeremy. Come on, said Chestnut, I'll carry it. Let's go back to the hollow tree. They ran down the wall to the floor and back towards the mouse hole. Let's go back, said Chestnut. They ran down the wall and back to the mouse hole. At that moment, the moon came out from behind a cloud and shone into the magician's room. A long finger of moonlight touched the little dragon. The dragon's eyes opened. The moon shone on the little dragon. The dragon's eyes opened. The next moment, the little dragon was hurtling down through the air towards the mice. Chestnut had just pulled the sack into the mouse hole. Jeremy and Miranda gave one startled look at the little dragon and dived into the hole after him. Jeremy and Miranda saw the dragon. They dived into the hole. Quick, cried Miranda. Quick, Chestnut. The little dragon's come alive again. Chestnut pulled the sack of magic dust into a corner in the hole. Jeremy and Miranda leapt forwards and fell on top of him. They were just in time. A long flame shot down into the hole, but it couldn't reach them. They heard the little dragon hiss with rage, and then he was gone. Chestnut pulled the sack into a corner. Jeremy and Miranda fell on top of him. The little dragon flew up into the air. He was just going to set the room on fire when he heard the magician coming. He didn't wait. He flew to the open window and out into the darkness and away over the roofs of the houses in Candletown. The little dragon flew away out of the window and over the roofs of the houses. Chestnut poked his head through the hole in the magician's front door. He looked out into the garden and listened. The dragon's gone, he whispered. Come on. The three little mice crept out into the magician's garden. The moon was shining down and they hid in the dark shadows. The three little mice crept out into the magician's garden. Grandfather Mouse and Aunt Jane were waiting for them by the hollow tree. Did you get the dust? Asked Grandfather. Yes, said Jeremy, but some of it fell on the little dragon. He came alive. He isn't stone any longer. We shall have to look out for him, said Aunt Jane, but you're safely back, and you've got the magic dust. That's the most important thing. Can we go and find Father and Mother now? Asked Miranda. It's too late tonight, said Grandfather. We'll go tomorrow as soon as it's dark. They all went down into the hole under the hollow tree. Grandfather Mouse and Aunt Jane were outside the hollow tree. When the magician went into his room, he smelt smoke. He looked for the little dragon, but the little dragon had gone. The box of magic dust was on its side, and some of the dust lay on the mantelpiece where the dragon had been. The magician shook his head. Now there'll be trouble, he said. I wonder where that little dragon has got to. The magician looked for the little dragon, but the little dragon had gone.